It's 9:30, the appointed time for the July meeting of the Wood County Board of Supervisors. So we'll call that meeting to order. I'll quickly state Supervisor Rosar is hung up at a railroad crossing. Called me about 15 minutes ago at least, and on her way, so she will join us at some point in time. Trent, I assume you've taken the roll?
We're working that way. Supervisor Bry and Hahn.
Is it that one?
I can make a present, please.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to come to President. It's supposed to go directly to him.
They're long. Yeah.
No, you were such a rebel.
I was gonna say, if you not know that progress comes in, I'll get around. Seemed to work.
Well, you're still alive.
Whatever.
Just make a present. Okay, go ahead.
There you go.
Jake, you're here now.
He's on.
He's on. Lisa, are we ready to go then with him? Okay. I think we've got everybody done. You got the roll taken then, Trent?
Yep.
At this point in time. All right, thank you very much. At this time, I call on Supervisor Brad Hamilton to please come forward for the invocation. Ask the body to rise and then remain standing for the pledge of allegiance, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let us pray. Father, thank you for your patience to listen to others' words without malice. Thank you for your renewal every day to do our good works. Thank you for your attitude of grace to help people that need your help. And thank you for your awesome power to lead us where we need to be. Finally, please place your hedge of protection over us, our protective services, and the people that protect us at home and abroad. Amen.
Please join in the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next thing on the agenda here is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. I have a motion by Hamilton and a second by Bry. Any discussion on those minutes? Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Today we have no excusals, we have no resignations. We do have an appointment to the Board of Adjustment, a 3-year term for Kathleen Lashinsky. I would entertain a motion for that appointment. And I have a motion by Hamilton, again, and a second by Fire. Is there any discussion on that appointment? Any discussion? Again, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And that motion carries. Public comment. Do we have any public comment today? Doesn't look like you have a lot of public here today. No public comment? All right. Moving on, acknowledgement and recognitions. We have none of those today. We do have a special order of business. We'll catch that when we get to either the end of the packet or the Parks part. And that is from the Parks and Forestry, their annual report with Director Schoolies. That, I guess, moves us into the packet. Don, I'll let you come on up and get seated while we get to that. So Supervisor Rosar is going to make a motion to approve a viaduct or a bridge or something over railroad tracks. Is that? All right, page 5 in your packet, referrals, and I know Supervisor Glendenning had a comment you wanted to make on the referrals.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've gotten several phone calls on this, and even I got one this morning about why isn't the marijuana issue, it's been sent from Eau Claire County, and since that resolution was sent to the Judicial Legislative Committee, why didn't you act on it? We did act on it. There was discussion on it. There was discussion from a supervisor on the committee, and there was also discussion on it from the district attorney. And there was no action taken on it. It was also referred to the sheriff's department, and nothing was brought up in that committee. So just because a resolution is a referral, and it is in the packet because we know about the referral. The television station that wanted this has called me several times yesterday telling me that it is in the packet and I must speak on it. So I am speaking on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Clement. I know several of us had calls on this issue yesterday and had the opportunity to speak to them, explain the difference between the referral and resolution. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the packet, the Operations Committee meeting, Tuesday, July 13, beginning on page 6, then 7 and 8. The monthly update from the county clerk on page 9. Human Resources Department monthly letter of comments, pages 10 through 15. Monthly update from the treasurer on 16. Employee wellness, beginning on 17 and running through page 25, 17 through 25. And then that brings us to the first resolution in the packet. It's on page 26 with other information available all the way through page 31 in reference to a resolution. Trent?
This will be resolution 21-7-1. Tax deed eligible property to authorize the tax deeding of property in compliance with section 7514 Wisconsin statutes. Fiscal note, the taxes plus the special assessments, special charges, delinquent utilities, publication fees, and tax deeding expense total $144,585.38.
Thank you. Looking for a moment. There we go. We have a motion by Wagner, a second by Clendenning. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion? Please vote.
So this looks totally different. I don't know how to do this. I got it. Thank you.
We're in.
You good?
We're in.
Okay, I was wondering what Don's question, and that passed unanimously. Moving on to page 32 in the packet, second resolution from the Operations Committee.
This will be resolution 21-7-2. Initial resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation promissory notes in the amount not to exceed $3,500,000 for highway projects and capital improvement projects. Fiscal note, proceeds from general obligation promissory notes not to exceed $3,500,000.
Thank you, and I have a motion by Hamilton, a second by Fire. Any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion on the resolution? Please vote. And that resolution also carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the packet, beginning on page 33, Health and Human Services Committee meeting of June 24th. That's 33 and 34. Minutes of the Veteran Service Commission of June 2nd and 35. Monthly update from the Health Department, 36 through 40. And then the monthly update from Human Services, beginning with Director Brewings at 41 through 47. Veteran Service Officers Report, 50 and 51. We go to the minutes of the Wood County Public Safety Committee, their June 14th meeting, 52, 3, 4, and 5. Their minutes from July 12th, on pages 56 through 59. Various humane officer reports beginning on May 2nd, running through the 12th of June, pages beginning on page 60 and running through page 68, 60 through 68. the monthly report from the Sheriff's Department, beginning on page 69, and this is kind of all encompassing, everything they basically do from the payroll reports through K-9, everything else in here, beginning on 69 and it runs through page 105, 69 through 105. Anybody have any questions for the Sheriff's Department? Give you a minute to look at any notes you made. No questions there? All right, going to page 106, we have the seed minutes of July 7th, beginning on 106, and those run through page 111. 106 through 111. Supervisor Ashbeck.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It always comes up in our team meetings about that groundwater group. And I see on the email now I just got on here that Kewaunee County, most of the sickness comes from the animals, animal manure. I think that's a broad statement to say to Kewaunee County. I think that's kind of a goal to Kewaunee County to make it public in Wood County that their people are getting sick. What if we should run Wood County? Why are we worried about Kewaunee County all the time? So,
Thank you, Supervisor Ashbeck. Any other comments there? Pages 106 through 111. 106 through 111. We'll go to Golden Sands Resource and Conservation Development Council. Their meetings, both finance and full meetings, beginning on page 112 and running through 119, and that's the meeting May 20th, 112 through 119. The University Extension Report, beginning on 120 and running through 123, 120 to 123. Land and Water Conservation Department Report, 124 through 129. Their activity report, 124 to 129. Planning and Zoning Report, beginning with Director Gruenberg's, on page 130. And that runs through page 136, 130 to 136. The June 21st meeting of the Citizens Groundwater Meeting, 137, 8, and 9. And then we have a book of pages here beginning on page 140, running through 164, and these are basically economic development projects that have been discussed or are being discussed through the Seed Committee, 140 through 164. I know that's a lot of pages, and I'm not trying to rush anybody. I don't know if anybody made any notes or has any questions. If I'm going too fast, slow me down. If I move to page 165, I have minutes of the Judicial and Legislative Committee of June 22nd, and that's 165, 66, and 67. Their minutes from July 2nd, pages 168 through 171, 168 through 171. And then some of the reports from the departments they oversee, beginning with the Child Support Agency, Director Brewing's at 172 and 173. 174, report from the Child Support Agency. Corp Counsel's monthly report on 175. Notice of injury and claims, 176, 7 and 8. That brings us to the next resolution in the packet, beginning on page 179, supporting documentation, and the rest of it all the way through page 181.
This will be Resolution 21-7-3 to update County Board Rule Number 12 entitled Speaking at Meetings by Non-Supervisors to address video participation at meetings and to clarify current practice for the benefit of the members of the public. Fiscal note none.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the resolution. I have a motion by Supervisor Bry, a second by Supervisor Hamilton. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion? All right, seeing none, please vote. That resolution passed 16-3, 16-3. Moving on in the packet, page 182, a second resolution from the Judicial and Legislative Committee. Data and supporting information is pages 182 through 186.
This will be Resolution 21-7-4 to establish bylaws for the Criminal Justice Task Force that address not only the operation of the entity, but to clarify its mission. Fiscal note none.
And I have a motion by Supervisor Hamilton, a second by Supervisor Brye. Any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? All right, please vote. And that resolution passed 18-1, 18-1. Again, moving forward in the packet, beginning on page 187 and running through page 190, an additional resolution from the Judicial and Legislative Committee.
This will be Resolution 21-7-5 to establish a position description for the Administrative Coordinator. Fiscal note none.
I have a motion by Fire, and I have a second by Hamilton. Discussion. Any discussion? Okay, I just again go to the board and vote. And again, that resolution passed 18-1. Now cut up there, trying to punch it all. All right. Moving forward, page 191 in your packet, minutes of the Highway Infrastructure and Recreation Committee, their meeting of Tuesday, July 6th, 191 through 194. Supervisor Clendenning.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to discuss the motion about opening up roads to ATVs. I know there's a resolution to it, but is it proper to have that discussion on that motion? And then later on, my concern is allowing 12-year-olds on roads driving ATVs, UTVs, and going the speed limit of 55 miles an hour, as the county has proposed that it would be the speed of whatever the road is, and that's what the ATVs would be doing. And I like what other people think of that as 12-year-old driving an ATV at 55 miles an hour. I have really concerns about that. And one of the things is I'm not against the ATVs, UTVs, and things like that. This is concerning that. Some time ago, when I was on a town board in another county, my brother came to the meeting and he had 3 daughters, and he wanted a sign put out on his road that was that said children at play. And my brother and I didn't speak to each other for 3 years after that. All I said is we don't build roads for children to play on. And he didn't get the sign, and then you see the signs did go away. And it was the same time when you used to be able to pass a car and it would say when it was okay to pass them. And people were passing because the sign said it was okay to pass, but there was a car coming. So the state of Wisconsin took down those. I just think this is setting a bad precedent. I know other counties are doing it, maybe even cities and villages. And I was surprised to learn that of all the traffic that goes on in the Wisconsin Dells area, that you're allowed in Wisconsin Dells to have an ATV and go the speed limit. So I just wonder what other people think of it. Thank you.
If I may, Supervisor Clendenning, I'm not, it's a state law that I'm aware of. Does the sheriff have any, with your indulgence, if the sheriff has any comment on, that is the state law? Sheriff Becker is nodding his head yes. And so I get the comment, is there any other supervisors that want to comment in regard to that? I don't. Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was discussed at the last highway PERC meeting, and it was decided that it's safer for people to drive their ATVs at the speed limit so they're not impeding traffic, and the huge convoy of ATVs aren't delaying people from passing. It's just all around it was thought to be safer for the speed limit to be whatever the speed limit is for ATVs and not just the 35 miles per hour. Thank you.
Yeah, Supervisor Light.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I attended the previous meeting before County Board started this morning because I had some misgivings about safety. Supervisor Clendenning restated those verbatim for what I would have said.
I taught driver's ed for 11 years. There were 15-year-olds, 15-and-a-half-year-olds that shouldn't have been on the road with the rest of us. I agree with what Supervisor Clendenning said.
Can I, just clarification, we're gonna get to a resolution, but I don't believe the resolution addresses that. But that is something that is state law that we can certainly weigh in on. Again, I'm gonna look to the sheriff. Sheriff, is there any discussion at your association anywhere as to the need of, for instance, a driver's license for somebody driving an ATV on certain highways? Has that ever come up yet? I hate to put you on the spot, but that's a question that we have to
No, we defer back to state statute, and that's what we've been, and I put out some information after the last Public Safety Committee meeting, because a lot of this was brought up, and what we do is we're gonna fall back on state statutes, and that's what we're gonna enforce. However, we can, modify our ordinances and be them, they can be more strict. And I know a couple of them have been brought up as far as like insurance, so that's something that we always can look at, but this is already addressed with by state statute.
Thank you. All right, on Supervisor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, state statute says you can drive a four-wheeler on the road, a 12-year-old can drive a four-wheeler on the road at 55 miles an hour, but they can't be in a car? Is that what I'm getting out of this? I don't agree with this 12-year-old stuff. I think you should have a license to drive on the city roads, city, state, county roads, whatever. I do not, the miles per hour, I'm fine with. But I just can't vote in good conscience for a 12-year-old to be on a four-wheeler on the road. I just will not.
Yeah, I don't believe that is what this resolution addresses in any way whatsoever. That if I'm interpreting what the sheriff is telling you, that's state statute, that's something that could be addressed through them. But our resolution does not deal with age of operation. It deals with liability. Okay, any other questions to Supervisor Clendenning? Bill or Supervisor Clendenning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it is in state statute, and I know that. But still, by the same token, I know counties that have it. I believe Portage County has that. They opened up all their county roads to that, to allow that to happen. The insurance is something we hope we can get. It's going to be an ordinance that we get it. But it's just the idea that I just, like others have said, a 12-year-old that can't get a license can go 55 miles an hour alone on a ATV, and that's what the motion was made here, is to allow that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to remind everybody of discussions that we've had about the Amish buggies over the years, and we've got teenagers that are very young driving Amish buggies at a much slower speed, and they really are, you have to have your head up and make sure that you're in a safe position to pass them and do all that. So we've got multiple things on the road, and I'm not opposed to this. We have to be consistent across the board, and that's been an issue for many years.
As we're in the packet here, Supervisor Clendenning sits on the WCA Resolution and Laws Committee. It's not something that'll come before this one, but maybe that's something that when we address the age of riders on highways, maybe that's something that the WCA would be willing to lobby on moving forward, and Supervisor Clendenning, that might be something to bring up. Okay, any other questions on the minutes? Supervisor Zerflin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we're confusing the 12-year-old issue with Chairman Hahn's committee's main thing in this, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hahn, is dealing with the insurance, which is something we talked about in public safety. But the 12-year-old issue, if that was in this ordinance, I'd be voting against it. But it's not in there, so I think therefore, we're dealing with the insurance issue, which is an important issue, and I will be supporting this resolution.
And we will get to that. Thank you very much. We are headed that direction for those watching on camera or elsewhere. So any other questions on the meeting itself or the meeting minutes? Right, that was 191 through 194. That brings us to 195 through 199, and that's the monthly update from our Highway Commissioner Roland Hawk, 195 through 199. The Park and Forestry report, beginning with Director Schoolies, 200 to 203, and we are going to have their annual report here shortly. The Park and Forestry annual report in writing, beginning on page 204 and running through 224, 200 or 204 through 224. And then that brings me to the resolution, which we started to discuss and probably will have more discussion on page 225. If you'd read that, please, John.
This will be ordinance number 21-7-6 to amend Wood County Ordinance number 404 designating all terrain vehicle routes. Fiscal note, none.
Okay. I have a motion by Hahn, I have a second by LaFontaine. I am to the resolution now. Obviously, we've had some discussion on where this may go. Is there any further discussion on the resolution itself? Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to further clarify that this has nothing to do with 12-year-olds on roads. This is just the requirement of liability insurance and then the speed limit to go with the flow of traffic. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Please vote. Okay, we had 5 no votes there. The resolution passes. Got all that, Trent?
Yep.
All right, page 230 in your packet. Property Information Technology Committee meeting minutes of July 1st. That's 230, 231, 2, and 3. And then that brings us to the next resolution in the packet on page 234.
Which is not a resolution. It's resolution 09-1-2, it's just information for the PIT committee. It's one that's been acted on back in 2009.
Boy, somebody should have told me that before we got here. All right, page 238 in your packet. Supervisor Hamilton. A lot of help.
How did you vote on that, Mr. Chairman?
I don't remember. All right, let's go to page 238 in the packet. And that's some information here from to Chad Schooley on some, on some of the boundaries on some of our park properties, where those are at. And I'm sure he's going to talk about some of this stuff in their annual report. Just informational. Beginning on page 240, 241, and 242, information technology update from that department. Monthly letter of comments from our facilities manager, Ruben Van Tassel, on 243. Then I come to a resolution that I hope we haven't acted on already, on page 244.
We will.
This will be resolution 21-7-7 to authorize the county clerk to execute the necessary documents to convey the nominal property interests the city of Wisconsin Rapids needs from Wood County for its West Jackson Street Road improvement projects. Fiscal note, the county will receive $2,161 for the temporary and permanent transportation easements.
Thank you. And I have a motion by Supervisor LaFontaine, a second by Supervisor Fire. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion? Please vote. That resolution passed unanimously. By the way, I'm getting used to looking at this new layout on the screen too. It's a little different than in the past. Sometimes it takes a second to pick up what it's saying. Next resolution from the Property Information Technology Committee on page 245.
This will be resolution 21-7-8 to authorize the petitioning of the city of Wisconsin Rapids for the discontinuance of that part of Avon Street between Market and 5th Streets for the construction of a new jail. Fiscal note, nominal. There may be a fee associated with the filing the petition or providing notice to the impacted property owners, but any funds needed are contained within the budget.
Okay, I have a motion by Supervisor Bride, a second by Supervisor Hamilton. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. That resolution passed 18-1. 18-1. Next resolution from the PIT committee, page 246.
This will be Resolution 21-7-9, to authorize the Property and Information Technology Committee to seek the rezoning of real property to be used for the construction of the new jail and to negotiate for the relocation of easements on said parcels. Fiscal note unknown. The rezoning process will likely have a filing fee cost that can be absorbed via budgeted funds. The relocation of easements may have significant cost, and the funds therefore would come out of the funds borrowed to build the jail.
Motion by Supervisor Hamilton, a second by Supervisor Zerflu. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? Please vote. And again, that resolution passed 18-1. 18-1. Moving along in the same direction, the last resolution from the Property Information Technology Committee.
This will be Resolution 21-7-10, to authorize the Planning and Zoning Director to make application for broadband grants in partnership with Hilbert Communications LLC. Fiscal note, the county is not making an actual financial commitment by means of this resolution, but is expressing an intention to pursue broadband internet expansion in the county if the funding from the state in support thereof is received.
And I have a motion by Supervisor Clendenning, a second by Supervisor Hamilton. Discussion on the resolution? Discussion? All right, please vote. And that resolution passed unanimously. All right, moving forward in the packet, page 249, beginning of the Aging Disability Resource Center, minutes of May 13th, beginning on 249, running through 253, 249 to 253. Mcmillan Memorial Library Board of Trustees, their meeting of May 19th on 254, 5, and 6. Same board, May 26th meeting, 257 and 258. Additional minutes there from their Building and Grounds Committee from June 9th on 259, 260, and 261. On 262, we have the Library Nominating Committee meeting minutes for June 3rd, that's on page 262. South Central Library System Board of Trustees, 263, 4, and 5. Wood County Library Board minutes of April 15th on 266. And then we have minutes of the Jail Study Ad Hoc Committee on 267 and 268. There are minutes from June 9th. As we move, Supervisor Rosar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just looking for some information about, will this jail ad hoc committee then just transfer over to an oversight committee for the construction of the jail, or what are the thoughts about the oversight of that building project?
You asked the question just as I was going to say, but I had spoken to Chairman of the PIT committee. It would be my intention, unless there's objection from the board, they did an outstanding job in the study phase of this. And certainly when we start the construction phase, we're going to need that same focus on this jail. And it would be my intention to either leave it named the same or call it the Jail Construction Committee, but keep the same committee in place through that process. And Supervisor Bry agreed with me that that was the best way to handle this as we move forward. They did a tremendous job with that, spent a considerable amount of time and the ability to move forward. So that would be my guess. Now, I don't know how many meetings they're going to have, but as they engage, construction supervisor, architectural firms, and deal with any changes to those plans as they move forward. I just think that's probably the most prudent way to move forward in that respect. Any other questions on the minutes? Anything that was in the package? All right, I'm going to move forward then. We have a special order of business today. Director Schooley from the Parks Department. And while he's coming up here, I make mention of this every year, and we do some pretty big events in Wood County. And our parks system, under Chad's direction, is really one of the best in the state. This last weekend, to put it in perspective, we host the largest water ski tournament in the world, about 20,000 people in attendance over those 4 days. I cannot tell you how many people came up to me over the weekend to express, just their admiration for what a great facility we have and what a great job that our parks people do in maintenance, in hospitality, and all the rest. And I know they work hand in glove with the sheriff's department on this, the law enforcement people, everybody puts this together. You have several hundred volunteers to do this, all get somewhat coordinated through some private groups, but through the sheriff's department, Chad's group. And Chad, I called you yesterday because I couldn't believe the number of people that came up to me, usually because I'm wearing a Wood County shirt, to praise your department. So with that, I hope that's a good lead into your annual report. Floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me? Is this good?
Yes.
Okay. That was a great lead-in. Thank you. Thanks. So today is kind of similar to other years. I get to kind of showcase some of the projects, events, outdoor recreation related in Wood County. As you're all aware, 2020 was like nothing else. Worldwide, obviously, but within our little cubby of the world, as far as Wood County Parks and Forestry, it was, again, nothing like I've ever seen before as far as the number of users in our parks. You know, early on we had to make the decision. There's a lot of Parks and Recreation, Parks and Forestry departments throughout the state that made decisions, obviously in consultation and approval from their boards, but you know, where are we going to open? Were we going to delay opening? Were we going to have facilities open to the public to use? Were we going to have staff at the doorways limiting the number of people going into a restroom? I mean, you name it. It was just, you know, every day it seemed to be changing. So it was a good year, but it was a challenging year. So get out of here. So. With that, I always start out with the employees of the Parks and Forestry Department. Obviously, without a good staff in any business, what have you, you're very limited on what you can provide as a product. And this staff is extremely dedicated. They do a great job. The amount of facilities, properties that are maintained by this staff is quite extensive, but I think they do a great job for the amount of hands that we have available for us. One thing that I did not put in here is we also rely on, annually, we rely on emergency management work crews. So if you're not familiar with that, we work closely with emergency management individuals who may be in jail, who are released to work off some of their fines, or they may be out of jail coming back if they're not employed. Again, last year was very challenging with that program basically shutting down because of COVID. In 2019, we had 5,195 hours, work hours from that group. 2020, prior to COVID, we got about 1,179 hours. So it was a very large decrease in hours, manpower that we were able to get from that crew, unfortunately, but like I said, our staff did a great job. In addition to our paid staff, we obviously work with volunteers on an annual basis also. Last year was no different. You know, we have the Nordic Ski Club who maintains our ski trail out at NEPCO. Our campground hosts who are volunteers at each one of our 3 campgrounds. Snowmobile clubs that do all the work out in the field. ATV clubs. This particular one is the one responsible for the intensive use area out at our location in Port Edwards. So great job, couldn't do it without our volunteers. As Chairman Flimmel stated, you know, obviously a lot of the events last year were canceled. These are just a few of those very large community events that we annually host. You know, one would think that was going to be a huge blow as far as usership within our parks, but it was kind of the opposite, honestly. I don't have these slides in here, but we have vehicle counters at several of our different park locations. In the entrances, it's obviously not all inclusive, but just to give you an idea, even without these huge community events, Southwood County Park increased 18%, North Park 27%, NEPCO 32%, Powers Bluff 12%. So even without these large events, it just shows that, you know, the parks are still obviously being used. So, and I will figure out which button to push by the end of the presentation. So a few of them did occur prior to shutting down, basically. The world shutting down anyways, so the Outdoor Youth Day, which is held at Nepco County Park, was held February 15th. The fisheries, both at, this one's pertaining to Nepco, but Nepco's fishery went on, Dexter's fishery went on. So those are annual events that have been going on for years. In addition to that, one of the good additions, I would say, out at Lake Wazeecha, one of the things that was recognized in our survey I've done a few years ago was there was really a want for rental equipment at some of our locations. We partnered up with Northward Pedal and Paddle, and they actually provided kayaks last year. This year they have kayaks, stand-up paddle boards, as well as a pedal boat. So very, used a lot, so it was a good addition. Some of the projects that we accomplished in 2020, one was part of a grant that we received through the ATV program. This was updating the ATV shelter building parking lot, as well as some other improvements at the site. So as you can see, the existing vault toilet, we put some new concrete around there. We made it a little easier to access. Grading was done to the existing gravel parking lot, ditching. We relocated the washdown station so it wasn't right in front of the shelter building. And kind of a dark picture, but the highway department did all that work for us as far as the parking lot. So they came in, graded, paved. We relocated the offloading ramp that you can see there. So it turned out really nice. We are getting, last year was just crazy. I'll say that a few times, but weekends you went by that parking lot, and it's a very big parking lot, and it was just plumb full. People were getting out of the houses, obviously, for different reasons. So it gets a lot of use out there. The Dexter Atv Campsites that we installed a couple years ago. This is just a replacement of the septic system out there, which our buildings are getting to that age. A lot of those plumbing, structures, facilities, things like that need to be updated for that purpose. In addition, those same sites, we started the year prior. We got the site pads in, but the water table was so high we were unable to do an installation of the electric. You can see there's still snow on the ground there. We had a window of time where we were able to trench and get those pedestals installed as well. So now all 10 sites are electric. I usually don't put this in there. We do this annually, but firewood processing, especially last year, was very important. So what we do is all the dead trees that our guys cut down in the off season or sometimes in the in season. Storm damage obviously adds to that if we have major storms. But all of that is compiled at our disposal site at Southwood County Park and different locations in our other parks. So they basically just cut them into 8-foot lengths. The small enough parcel, the small enough logs are then processed. We hire a contractor that comes in, does a great job. It obviously saves a lot of back work and time on our staff. We used to do everything in-house, but the volume of firewood that we now sell, 2020 we saw a 71% increase of firewood sales over the previous year. So it's something we have to stay ahead of. Obviously, we don't want to be selling wet wood, especially now that we require them to purchase it within our facilities themselves. So that's something that we're always constantly, trying to stay ahead of as well. With that in mind, we have added, this is number 2, additional storage for our firewood. We had old storage buildings at each one of our parks. We still do, but just the capacity to keep, kind of rotate that stock of firewood and keep it dry, we really had a need for that. So this is 2 of 3. We're looking at constructing a new one at Dexterville this year as well. So all 3 will have larger storage buildings. and that's just a final product. So in 2020, we had a work crew there. It's called WISC Corps. If you remember or recall, we used to have a conservation corps that was based out of Wood County. That was a state-run program that disbanded several years ago. There's now, it's more of a nonprofit outside of the state realms, but they're based out of La Crosse, and so this, you can see a picture up there, a 6-person crew, and occasionally there would be other crew leaders, but they were with us for over a 3-week period, and they were actually up at Powers Bluff doing handwork. So basically about a 1.4 mile single track trail was installed just by this crew. Chainsaws, weed cutters, stump pullers, you name it. It's basically roughed in at this point. There is some fine finishing touches that still need to be done, but this was a project that it kind of kicked off the installment of our trail conceptual plan up there. So we're very excited. We're hoping that this is obviously just step one of many miles of different types of trail up at that location. So. Just an example, so we obviously also coordinate the snowmobile program within Wood County, our department does. Sandra Green does a great job with that, snowmobile ATVs. But this is just an example, you know, maintenance. We own the physical bridges, whether it's on our property or private property. It's state funded. And so when there are issues, you can see that one of the pilings we were having fail. The highway department actually came in and did this work. They supported it, obviously, with that steel, and hopefully that'll last for many more years. There's also some riprap that was placed around that as well. Last year also was kind of a catch-up. So the year prior we had that large storm and we had some roofs that were damaged. So I'll just kind of thumb through. We had a restroom roof as well as our ranger station out at South Park. One of the projects that we're very proud of, it turned out great, was our White Sands Beach restroom remodel. That building is actually, if not the original, it's one of the 2 original buildings that were constructed within our parks system. So Southwood County Park and Northwood County Park were the first 2 that were entered, you know, way back in the 1940s. And so this structure, original structure, was built late 1940s and really had not had a whole lot of work done since that point. So if you recall the old buildings, and some of them still have them, they have those huge outdoor, no roof changing areas. And obviously use has changed over years. No one uses those anymore. And so we wanted to kind of still utilize that space. And I think we came up with a really nice plan. This was a grant, 50% grant funded project. One of the areas was just used for storage. You can see it's now a kitchenette for one of the open shelters. We also gutted out basically both of the bathrooms. We added an ADA family style bathroom as well, utilizing some dead space. And this is kind of the end product. So those wing walls, those shelters on both sides were all enclosed. We obviously opened those up, extended the roof line, and they are reservable at this point. We've been getting a lot of reservations for all kinds of different events out there now. This is the backside, opposite of the lake. We removed some overgrown vegetation, redid the flag base, and it just looks really nice. So we're very proud of that. It turned out great. Another building is, we've been kind of updating our restrooms as we have time and money. This is another one that we replaced the roof and basically redid the entire inside of that as well. Now we're going to get into just some of our numbers as far as usage within the parks. These are all of our different shelter buildings available. This is the new White Sands Beach shelters. So that on both sides you can reserve one or both of those sides. Shelter buildings, obviously that was one of the things that we took a hit on. Larger gatherings, community events, things like that. So this is just kind of a tally of all of our different shelter buildings that we have in the system. And this is kind of a summary. So in 2020, there were 288 shelter reservations. The prior year, 340. So it was a pretty big hit. Fortunately, you know, when we get to the revenue end of things, there really wasn't a huge hit revenue-wise because a lot of those functions paid last year and they just transferred over to this year. So really the revenue end will most likely see the hit this year when we do our revenue report, our annual report then. Campground, you can see the huge jump, 19,461 camping unit nights, over 14,583 the year prior. So, I mean, 33% jump. I heard the response several times from our workers was, you know, every day is like the 4th of July all summer long. I mean, just the number of people that are out in the parks. I mean, it was great, but it was obviously add that many more people. You know, they felt like they were hauling firewood, cleaning touch points, and picking up garbage after people. That's all they did all summer long, just because of the amount of usage that we had. But like I said, they did a great job, and we're seeing that continue this year, so obviously people are returning. This is just a graph showing Wood County versus out-of-county campers. So as you can see, I mean, this is pretty typical. A little bit over 50%, 56% are non-Wood County residents versus the 43% of residents. Just a few other things. Boat launch totals, as you can see, 2,300 versus the about 2,000 the year prior. Cross-country ski trails. That also saw an increase. However, that season was kind of right at the beginning when things were starting to ramp up. So the 2019-2020 winter season. Powers Bluff, same season. We did have a decent snowfall that year, so you can see the number of tickets sold were quite a bit more than the prior year. That is all based on snowfall, how much snow we have up there, and how long we can operate. So. Campfire rack, the number of firewood racks sold, I mentioned that earlier, was a huge increase as well. And then getting into the county forest. So obviously we have the parks side of things, and then we also have county forest. Last year was a pretty decent year as far as number of sales that got completed. This is just a snapshot of counties that actually have county forest as a part of their county operations. Acreage-wise, Wood County is at 38,000, so it's somewhat on the lower end when you look at some of those northern counties as far as acreage that we own and maintain. These were the sales that were sold in 2020. So there were four sales that were bid out. One was not bid on completely, so there were 5 that were put together, but only 4 were awarded. This is just a snapshot of revenues from timber sales from 1999 through 2020. As you can see, 2020 was a good year comparably, $406,000. He's talking to me. I guess I'm running out of time here. So as you're aware, hopefully, 10% of these sales go back to the townships that the property is located in. Not specifically that property, but it's all prorated. So the number of acres that these townships have county forest in, that prorates down to the 10% total. So as you can see, $40,679 went back to those particular towns. This is just kind of a visual as far as our different revenue sources. The largest one, the dark green, is camping operations. So that's camping revenue as well as firewood sales, ice sales, things like that. Those are obviously that one in the light green, county forest. Timber sales are always the two largest ones. They kind of flip-flop between, which one's larger in a particular year, but obviously the parks had a great year last year as far as usership and fees. Same information, just kind of showing 2019 versus 2020 totals. And then the big thing is how much did this cost, taxpayers. It shows the last 3 years, so 2018, 19, and 20. That bottom line in the chart total there is the net tax levy. So in 2020, our department was $694,902. That was our tax levy. Our budget for the year was $716,000, a little bit over that, so we were below what was budgeted for us. And then just as a percentage of, if you're interested on what piece of the pie do the parks get, Parks and Forestry get of the county budget, in 2021, or in 2020, it was 2.6% of that total, so. Social media, Sandy likes to put this in, and I think it's very important to get a lot of likes. This is how we disseminate a lot of our information to our users, so she does a good job. It's one of those things, it'd be great if we or the county had someone dedicated to this. It's one of those, we fit it in when we can, but I think she still does a good job of keeping that up. And then just to end with a few different photos from last year. This is Northwood County Park, our annual ice jam breakup. So I just want to thank you as a county board for continuing to invest in the parks and forestry. Whenever you're feeling generous, we'll always take more, but thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions for Chad? Do you have any questions? They did a remarkable job last year, and I was a little bit remiss because the one I forgot to mention, really, that was, a big part of that was the health department, working with our parks department to make sure we were open. A lot of the state was closed, and we were able to maintain those fantastic numbers in our parks because of that cooperation and their willingness to work with them. So, Chad, thanks. No other questions? Guess you're off the hook.
All right.
Thanks. A couple things I wanted to mention real quick before we wrap up here, and we've done it in about a minute. Wood County has a Crime Stoppers Board of Directors, and people term out of that because we have term limits, and we are looking for some new board members. Now, these are non-paid positions. They meet about once a month for about an hour, typically in Pittsville. So if you or somebody else might be interested in participating in the Crime Stoppers Board, that would be great. They're a big help in solving some of the crimes that we have in the area. So if you have somebody in mind, or if you might want to consider that, contact me and I'll get you to the right person. All right, that'd be great. Two, I just came back from the NACO conference, and one of the questions I get constantly from everybody, including the local surrounding communities, is what are we doing with the ARPA funds? So the answer is, after going to NACO, is we're not sure. Take your time. So I had a meeting with the Department of Treasury, and I think their note was this: you have till the end of 2024 to decide where you want to expend those funds. You have till the end of 2026 to actually spend the dollars. And the reason they're saying take your time a little bit is, as they constantly look at this, the first question asked at NACO was, why do we have any rules as to how we can spend this? It's money that local units of government will use well. And the answer was hilarious, because the federal government said, well, we're afraid the local units of government will waste it. Coming from the federal government, that's kind of a funny statement, but that's what it was. But they are working on eliminating a lot of the limitations and restrictions. Those continue to be diminished. I think at some point we're going to have a lot more latitude than we have right now. That being said, I know we do have some immediate needs within the county. So there are some of those things that we're going to need to address sooner rather than later, but I guess that's not going to be the bulk of those dollars until we get a little bit more clarification on how we're going to do that. All of you are welcome to participate in those WCA leadership calls, which are, we are in communication daily with the staff at NACO, as we try to figure out exactly what that's going to be. You know, the first definition of infrastructure did not include roads and bridges. After discussion out at NACO, I think that probably will be one of the things that we can spend money on pretty soon. So we did have those meetings with the Department of Treasury, and then actually had in-person meetings with Vice President Harris and Speaker Pelosi. And I will say this, you know, NACO and WCA are nonpartisan organizations. I know that those are partisan elected offices, but in those meetings, you know, the one thing they talked about was the relationship with those county organizations and how they can help. Those messages remain nonpartisan, at least in that context. So guidance on ARPA funds coming forward, Crime Stoppers, if you think about it, or if you have somebody who might want to participate, it's a great organization to be part of. And I guess I got nothing else here. Anybody else have anything? Anybody else? All right, then we will declare the meeting adjourned.